What the hell are you doing? Oliver is the male lead. If he dies, you're done for two. Blood dripped from the tip of the sword, and the system let out a shrill screech in my ear. I don't give a damn. I've died 6 times already. Is stabbing him once too much? I rolled my eyes hard. Besides, he's not even dead yet, as expected of the male lead. I aimed right for his heart, but somehow, I still missed by an inch. Looking at Oliver lying in a pool of blood, and thinking that I'd die by his hand again a year later, I raised my hand to finish him off. The cold glinting long sword stabbed down in an instant. Just as the tip was inches away from Oliver, he suddenly opened his eyes. I shuddered violently, and the blade grazed his face, leaving a thin trail of blood. Damn, what a pity. Other things aside, Oliver's face was absolutely flawless. Handsome, with a natural charm. Even with this new scar, it didn't mar his looks at all. Instead, it added a bit of a broken, alluring beauty. His eyes stared at me calmly, and I instinctively shrank back a little. This guy, no matter how hard I tried to win him over in previous lives, his favorability towards me was always negative. Only when I was on the verge of death did it barely reach 0. Thinking of this, a surge of viciousness welled up in me. I'm not going to hold back. If I don't make him pay for the resentment of my 7 past lives today, then I won't be James. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 20. What the hell? My mind went blank, and I stared at the blood-stained man in front of me in disbelief. Is Oliver a masochist or something? Just as I was silent, the madam finally screeched, pushed through the crowd of onlookers, and rushed over to me in a hurry. As soon as she saw this scene, she let out an "Aya." Without caring that Oliver was seriously injured, she immediately grabbed his hair and started banging his head on the ground. You good for nothing with no sense. How dare you offend young Master James? Kneel down and apologize at once. Oliver's head was slammed down hard, and it quickly turned red and started bleeding. But even so, his gaze didn't drop. Instead, he looked up at me with a sort of half-smile. Ding. The male lead's favorability 5. Favorability 5. 5. Stop, I shouted, cold sweat breaking out on my back. I quickly stopped the madam from forcing Oliver to kowtow. What's going on? Oliver, aren't you a masochist? You should be enjoying this. Why is his favorability dropping? Looking at the numbers above Oliver's head that had reset to 0, I kicked him in anger. This moody guy. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased by 10. I fell silent again. No way. Could it be that Oliver is only submissive in front of me? Seeing that I didn't say anything, the madam quickly continued to scold Oliver obsequiously. Hurry up and beg young Master James to calm down. Oliver was in a sorry state, but his eyes were calm. He slowly opened his mouth. I've never met young Master James. I don't know where I've offended him. My heart skipped a beat. I thought to myself, this is bad. At this time, Oliver and I hadn't met yet. Just as I was thinking about how to respond, Oliver let out a self-deprecating laugh. I've got a worthless life. Why not be the second young master's dog for his amusement in the future? Something's off. It's really off. Wasn't I supposed to kill Oliver? How come I ended up saving him back to the mansion instead? Oliver on the bed was in a deep sleep. The excessive blood loss made his face even paler. Host! He said he wants to be your dog. Does this mean our mission to win him over is finally going to succeed? The system was yelling excitedly. I really wanted to stuff this forgetful fool back to be remade. Do you think he really wants to be my dog? Check his favorability rating yourself. 0? The system shrieked. Why is it still 0? Not bad. I nodded in satisfaction. Come on, this is the best score I've had in all 7 of my rebirths. At least it shows that Oliver's heart isn't as cold and unyielding as people say. The male lead is really a tough nut to crack. The system side, its performance was ruined by both me and Oliver. It's not that he's unyielding. I looked at Oliver's peaceful sleeping face, feeling a bit guilty. Anyone would find it hard to easily develop a favorable impression of the son of their enemy, right? My dear father was the one who wiped out Oliver's entire family. I only learned the truth during my second life. The Xie family was originally a loyal and heroic military family, but they were sentenced to be executed along with their entire clan because of my father's false accusations. At the time of execution, to show benevolence, the emperor specially issued an edict to leave a descendant for the Xie family. So Oliver was pardoned and demoted to a commoner. Everyone said Oliver was lucky to have survived, but little did they know that being spared was the most painful thing. That imperial decree turned out to be the cruelest punishment instead. Most of the high-ranking families in the capital were snobs, and with my dear father secretly fanning the flames, Oliver, a commoner, was tormented, humiliated, and even sold into a brothel. But no one knew that Oliver was biding his time. A homeless, vicious dog in the shadows, once it strikes back, will surely cause a bloodbath. I was just one of the souls lost on Oliver's path of revenge. Although Oliver has killed me several times, I really can't bring myself to hate him. It's not because I'm so noble, but because I know he's not targeting me personally. My father harmed his whole family, so he killed my father's whole family in return. It's just an eye for an eye. So, in my previous 6 rebirths, I kept a low profile and hid my arrogant nature. I did everything I could to be gentle and accommodating, trying to soften the heart of that mad dog who had hidden his fangs. But it was all for nothing. You don't hate him? Then why do you pick up a sword and kill as soon as you wake up? Host, you lie without thinking. Cough, cough. He's killed me several times. Even a cornered rabbit will bite. I was indignant, but when I turned around, I saw that Oliver had woken up at some point. Our eyes met, and my mind went blank. I was glad he couldn't hear my conversation with the system. Oliver's gaze only lingered on me for a moment, then quickly dropped. He put on a submissive look and made a move to get out of bed. Does young Master James have any orders? He's really good at pretending. How many times have I been fooled by his seemingly harmless appearance? This time, I'm too lazy to play along with him. Anyway, I'm gonna die sooner or later, so I might as well have some fun first. Oh, if you want to be a dog, you should at least call me Master, right? Oliver suddenly looked up, met my unruly eyes. He only hesitated for a moment, then suddenly reached out and pulled me closer. Caught off guard, I plopped down on the bed, nearly pressing on his wound. His warm breath was right by my ear. Oliver leaned in so close that when his hoarse voice spoke, even the words seemed sticky. He said, "Master." My body stiffened, and I pushed him away as if seeing a ghost. But I didn't control my strength well. Oliver's chest wound burst open immediately, and blood seeped through the gauze. He was in so much pain that his forehead was sweating, yet there was a gloomy smile in his eyes. Ding! The male lead's favorability +5. During this time, the news that young Master James had stabbed the only heir of the Xie family had spread like wildfire in the capital. I turned a deaf ear. Anyway, everyone knew I was arrogant and unruly, and this wasn't the only outrageous thing I'd done. Oliver, I casually threw a wooden box at him. Master. Oliver was getting more and more used to calling me Master, without batting an eye. Sometimes, there was even a hint of something amorous in it. Put it on. He opened the wooden box and his expression froze. Inside was a brown collar, made of fine cowhide and with a delicate iron ring in the middle. Such a thing was originally for wild and unruly beasts. If worn on a person, it was a blatant insult. I was determined to not care anymore. Since I was going to die at Oliver's hands anyway, I might as well bully him to my heart's content. What? Can't you understand me? I squinted and sneered, as arrogant as I could be. My lord, you're joking. I'm just quite surprised that you understand such interests. Oliver didn't fly into a rage as I'd imagined, nor did he show any expression of humiliation or unwillingness. Instead, ding! The male lead's favorability +20. Almost forgot. Oliver's mind is completely abnormal. Before I could come to my senses, he had already put the collar around his neck. The brown leather matched the bulging veins on his neck quite well, coupled with the shallow scar on his face that had scabbed over. At this moment, Oliver exuded a bit of a wild air, reminding one of a fierce dog that had been beaten and had its leg broken on the street but still bared its teeth and barked furiously. Oliver suddenly frowned. He raised his hand and touched the iron ring on the collar, then slowly pulled out a short needle from the side and looked at me meaningfully. I immediately changed my expression. This short needle was hidden secretly, but if one wasn't careful, could easily cost someone their life. This wasn't my idea. I blurted out. Oliver didn't say anything. It was hard to tell if he believed me or not. He reached out and wiped, and the blood bead from the needle prick on his neck smeared onto my lips. He stared at my crimson lips, and the emotions in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. The next second, he kissed me fiercely. The hostility that had been well hidden all along instantly swept over me. In a fit of impulse, I abruptly pushed him away and gave him a resounding slap. Smack! Oliver's face immediately swelled on one side, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he smilingly grabbed my wrist. Did your hand hurt from the slap? Ding! Favorability plus 15. Scared, I immediately pulled my hand back and left the room, flicking my sleeve. Are you out of your mind? That slap was really hard. So much so that when Oliver showed up at the dinner party in the young and Viscount's residence, the expressions of all the guests were quite something. Oliver, what happened to your face? Do you need to have the family doctor take a look at it? My father, Matthew, was sitting at the head of the table, feigning concern. Oliver is just a commoner. There's no need for the young and Viscount to worry about him. Oliver replied neither humbly nor arrogantly. My father was about to ask more, but my eldest brother, William, couldn't hold back any longer. James, today father is entertaining noble guests. It's really inappropriate for you to bring the son of a convicted official to the table. The guests started whispering. Father scolded my brother, saying he shouldn't touch on other sore spots. I've seen this act of theirs plenty of times. Hey, this wine is good. Oliver, you should try it. I was kneeling in front of the small wine table, drank half a cup of osmanthus wine, then threw a peanut into my mouth, completely ignoring William's words. With a long arm pull, I dragged Oliver, who was standing by, into my arms and fed him the remaining half cup of wine. William was so angry at my wild behavior that he crushed the cup in his hand. The fake smile on my father's face almost slipped, and he could only pretend not to notice and invite the guests to drink. Oliver looked at the wine cup I held to his lips, drank it all from the side I had sipped, and then quietly licked my finger at the end. No wonder you brought me to the banquet. You're using me as a shield to deliberately embarrass your father and brother. He murmured softly, and became even more affectionate right in front of everyone. When his fingers brushed lightly, almost imperceptibly, across my leg under the table, I finally couldn't take it anymore and whispered a warning. That's enough. Since you want to use me, master, you should use me thoroughly. Oliver whispered close to me. A rush of blood surged through me and I was tipsy. I knew Oliver was trying to tempt me. His motives were so deep and heavy, but, affection plus 10. The system let out an excited belch, and I was so startled that my hand jerked, and the wine glass fell into Oliver's lap, soaking his clothes. Master, I'll go change my clothes. Oliver got up and excused himself. I stared blankly at his back. Wait a minute, this time I didn't hit or scold him. Why the hell did his affection level go up for no reason? I sat alone by the stream stones in the back garden of the Earl's mansion, letting the cold wind sober me up. Master, what are you doing here? Oliver had changed into a dark-colored outfit and stood on the other side of the stream, almost blending in with the night. I remained silent, just throwing stones into the stream in front of him, one by one, making dull thuds. After a long while, I looked up at him across the stream. Did you get what you wanted? Oliver's figure froze. So you knew. Of course I knew. The cruel madam at the brothel was your doing, wasn't she? She actually takes good care of you in private. Saying you wanted to be my dog was just an excuse to get close to me and use me to get into the young and Viscount's residence. Because there's something you want in my father's study. In the night, I couldn't see Oliver's expression clearly, but I saw him dangerously put his hands behind his back. You knew all this and still brought me to the banquet. You even deliberately got my clothes wet so I'd have an excuse to leave. Master, what's your intention? I heard him laugh softly, and my heart skipped a beat. The system didn't seem to mention this. Could Oliver kill me off in advance? Wait. I haven't finished speaking. Before I could say a word, Oliver on the other side of the stream flicked his arm, and a silver glinting object came flying across the water at breakneck speed. That concealed weapon was moving so fast that I had no chance to dodge. This bastard. He's trying to kill me again, just as I was about to curse before I died. The silver light passed right by my hair, and the black-clad attacker behind me dropped to the ground at once. Oliver leaped, his feet touching the water, and in an instant, he was in front of me. He had no sword or knife, but his punches and kicks were graceful. In the blink of an eye, the remaining few assassins were dead. Most of my drunkenness wore off immediately. Oliver remained calm. He walked over to the first fallen black-clothed man and fished out that hidden weapon from earlier. I took a closer look. Well, it was the same short needle from before. He really made good use of it. Oliver carefully wiped the blood off the short needle, then nonchalantly stuck it back into the collar around his neck. He turned his head, saw my indescribable expression, and there was a smile in his eyes. A gift from the master, even if it's something for killing, should be cherished. Constantly reminds me that the master wants my life. Crazy. My face flushed red, and I lifted my foot to kick him. Don't you want to kill your master too? If that short needle had been an inch off, I'd be dead. When I kicked, Oliver didn't even budge. Instead, I lost my balance and fell into the stream with a splash. That night, after falling into the water, I got a fever, half asleep and half awake. I seemed to recall things from my childhood. Back then, I still lived in the Yongin Viscount's residence. My mother was still alive, and she loved to take me to sit on the rocks by the stream in the garden. We would stay there for the whole afternoon. On my 10th birthday, someone pushed me into the icy cold stream. No one heard my cries for help. My consciousness was fading away, and everything seemed to be falling. Just as I was about to give up struggling, I vaguely saw someone swimming towards me desperately. He pulled me out of the water and called my name over and over again. But my eyelids were so heavy that I couldn't make out his face no matter how hard I tried. Master, master? Disturbed from my dream, I frowned and slowly opened my eyes. For a moment, the blurred figure in my memory seemed to overlap with the outline in front of me. It's time to take your medicine. Oliver tested the temperature of my forehead with the back of his hand, then helped me sit up. What about those assassins? As soon as I opened my mouth, Oliver fed me the medicine. Master, just focus on getting better. I'll handle it. I knew exactly who those assassins were. The ones who dared to attack in the Yongin Viscount's residence could only be my dear elder brother, William. I couldn't remember the person who saved me back then, but I clearly remembered the one who pushed me. I never thought that after all these years, he still favored such straightforward and effective methods. Let Oliver deal with it. Anyway, none of them will get away. I don't want to drink it anymore. It's bitter. Thinking about my future, I turned my face away impatiently and just came out with it. Oliver, stop pretending to be loyal. You've got the evidence of my father framing the Xie family as you wished. You don't need to keep acting like a dog. Oliver didn't say anything and still held the medicine bowl to my lips. I couldn't stand his scheming look. In a fit of anger, I swept my hand and smashed the medicine bowl to pieces. To you, everyone in the Yongin Viscount's residence is an enemy, and I'm no exception. Since you're going to kill me sooner or later, why bother saving me in the first place? What about you? Why did you help me? He looked calmly into my eyes, and for a moment, I was speechless. After a long while, I coughed heavily twice. Just doing you a favor. Master, you're really bad at lying. Suddenly, Oliver cupped my face. He got so close that my mind went blank, and words just spilled out of my mouth. The Xie family was loyal and upright. They didn't deserve to be wronged and bear grudges. In an instant, Oliver's eyes lit up, and emotions surged in his eyes like a tide. Since the emperor issued the order to execute the entire family, no one dared to say that the Xie family was wronged and bearing grudges, let alone loyal and upright. Oliver had been alone for so long. Now, hearing these words, he felt that there was still justice in the world and that there were still people with a clear conscience. He couldn't hold back any longer. Gently, he kissed my lower lip, then his lips trailed along my earlobe, neck, collarbone, but I felt guilty. In previous lives, I was so afraid of death that I only wanted to survive. For this reason, while I was trying to win Oliver over, I hoped he wouldn't get the evidence, wouldn't take revenge, or I tried every way to escape and protect myself. Now that I've accepted the fact that I'm going to die sooner or later, I finally realized that there are more important things to do than just living in fear, like clearing the Xie family's name, and enjoying life while I can. I was so lost in thought that the sticky heat from the fever and the kisses intertwined, making me feel dizzy. As dawn was breaking, I passed out, feeling groggy. When I woke up again, it was already noon. Surprisingly, after the whole night's ordeal, I actually felt a lot more refreshed. Oliver was nowhere to be seen, but that iron chain was still by my hand. The moment I saw it, I got angry and flung it away. It happened to hit the person who was coming in. Awake, Oliver picked up the chain unhurriedly, then poured me a cup of tea and handed it to me. He seemed quite different today. Before, he was just putting on an act, like a dog, and his words and deeds made it hard to tell if he was sincere or not. But today, he seemed a bit more genuine. This morning, William accidentally fell into the river. I choked on the tea in my throat and stared at Oliver with wide eyes. Acting so fast? Calculating the time. After Oliver and I were done, did he still have the energy to go out and kill someone? But in previous lives, William didn't die this early. Does the master pity him? How could I? He got what he deserved. William was highly regarded by our father, and he was surely involved in the framing of the Xie family. I thought so too. William pushed you into the water back then, and this way of dying suits him best. I nodded repeatedly, then suddenly felt something was off. How do you know about this? Oliver didn't answer. He just lifted his thumb and wiped the water from the corner of my lips. I also know that the master pushed him into a difficult situation to get revenge on William at that time. Master, you look the most charming when you never forget a wrong. He murmured close to my lips. Desire, a familiar look, appeared in Oliver's eyes. I thought this is bad, and immediately told him to get lost. This bastard just wouldn't stop. Oliver grabbed the fist I swung at him and affectionately kissed the back of my hand. When the master has the intention to kill me, you're most like me, and that's when you're most attractive to me. I was utterly shocked. Oliver. I looked at him, speaking earnestly. Maybe you should take some medicine to fix your head. Unfortunately, Oliver stubbornly refused to get his head treated. These past few days, he's been busy dealing with William's death. He's gone during the day, but shows up at my place punctually at night. I grumbled about how he's like a stray dog always out and about, but in reality, I let him be. Now that Oliver has the evidence, he needs a bit more time to plan. There should be some big moves soon. Host! I've got great news. The male lead's favorability has reached 70. I was rocking in a reclining chair, leisurely lying under the osmanthus tree in the courtyard, munching on sunflower seeds, when the system, which had been idle for ages, suddenly popped up. 70. This number is ridiculously high. Oliver, you've finally got your comeuppance. I chuckled and nonchalantly crossed my legs. You killed me so many times and pretended to be so heartless, but you still fell for me. Host, look at how giddy you are. Do you have feelings for Oliver? Shut up. I turned cold in an instant and stuffed a whole plate of shelled melon seeds into my mouth. Sure enough, this is much more satisfying. I'll find an excuse to make Oliver shell melon seeds all night tonight. But host, I have to remind you that as long as the favorability doesn't reach 100, the mission will still fail and you'll still end up dead at Oliver's hands. If I die, I die. It's not like I've never died before. How about I go stab him a couple more times to vent my anger? Host! Stop slacking off. The system screeched. Think about it. You've finally gotten his favorability up to 70. Why don't you put in a little more effort? Like, give him a bit of a thrill. Drug him, tie him up, force him. Stop. Stop. Cut the self-serving crap. The system was really unreliable. I was just about to correct its dirty thoughts when someone suddenly burst in through the door. She was dressed in morning clothes, her eyes blood red, and she started shouting and cursing as soon as she entered. James, get out here. I was wondering who it was. Emma, you have a perfectly good Yongin Viscount's residence to stay in. What are you doing here? I rocked the reclining chair a couple of times, too lazy to greet her, but in my heart, I was puzzled. This didn't happen in the previous lives. James, your eldest brother has passed away. Why aren't you in mourning? You're so unfilial and unjust. You're worse than a beast. Mourning? I sneered. When my mother died of illness, did you and your son offer sincere condolences? On the day she was buried, you wore a bright red dress under your mourning clothes, and William was having an affair with a servant in the mourning hall. Now you have the nerve to ask me to mourn for William? I'm already being kind by not smashing his memorial tablet. Emma's face contorted in rage, and she rushed at me and started struggling with me. It's you. It must be you. You killed William, that's why you don't dare to see him. You're as low class as your mother. I suddenly threw her to the ground and stabbed my sword at her collarbone. Emma let out a scream, and her white mourning clothes were instantly stained red with blood. "If I hear you slander my mother again, I'll send you to meet your precious son, James." She stared at me fiercely, then suddenly burst into crazy laughter. "Fine. Since you're so filial, then I'll tell you a secret." Emma's pale lips moved. I stared at her lip reading, stunned for a long time. The blood-stained long sword clanged and fell to the ground. It was already deep into the night when Oliver returned. I was still lying alone in the courtyard, with osmanthus flowers covering my chest. "Master, why don't you go inside?" He frowned, looking at my thin clothes, then took off his outer garment and covered me with it. I didn't answer, just stared blankly. He seemed to sense something. His warm body came over, making the reclining chair creak and shake. "What happened?" Oliver held me in his arms and whispered. I shook my head, grabbed his collar and rolled over, straddling him in a dominant position. A tender kiss landed. Oliver's eyes widened slightly, looking surprised. The next second, he couldn't wait to respond, even getting so excited that he bit my lip. "So proactive for the first time. Is this a reward for me, master?" The ambiguous intertwined breaths echoed in the courtyard. The system kept broadcasting the favorability value, but I couldn't hear anything. "Master is really passionate today." Oliver held me close, lingering. His hair was scented with osmanthus, which smelled especially good. I was silent for a moment, then got up from his embrace. "Oliver, could you not kill my father?" The tenderness on his face froze instantly. Even though we were intimate in our actions, we both knew perfectly well that the deep-seated hatred was like a thorn between us. Just because we hadn't mentioned it didn't mean it didn't exist. And now, I had barefacedly pulled out the thorn, tearing a gulf between us, roots and all. I thought we were the same kind of people. After a deathly silence, Oliver let out a self-deprecating laugh. "So, we're strangers after all, Lord James." Oliver returned to the brothel. People all said that he failed to cozy up to young Master James, couldn't even act like a dog, and was only fit to be trampled on in the brothel. But I knew that the brothel was his base. The madam who often beat and scolded him was actually collecting information about various high-ranking officials and nobles for him. Just one last step, and he could close the net on everything. In the alley, I used a sack to beat up those small-minded people who gossiped about Oliver behind his back. Watching them flee in disarray, I threw away the cudgel in my hand and turned to take a distant look at Oliver, who was bowing and scraping at the entrance of the brothel. The collar I gave him was no longer around his neck. "Host, what's the point of doing this where the male lead can't see? The male lead's favorability towards you." "Shut up. I don't want to hear it." I didn't want to care about that cold-hearted favorability value anymore, so I turned around and left. "Hey host, where are you going? This doesn't seem to be the way home." "Who said I'm going home? Starting from today, I'm going back to the young and Viscount's residence. Now that William has died, and father's other children are all underage." When I returned to the Earl's mansion, he looked much older, and his attitude towards me had also become more amiable. As for Emma, she didn't come to pick on me at all, but every time we met, she would look at me with a sinister smile, then leave without saying a word. One day, father asked about Oliver. Apparently, he suspected Oliver of being involved in William's death. "I heard that you kicked Oliver out, and he went back to the red light district. I'll let go of that absurd thing you two did at the dinner table last time, but he's a poor kid after all. Why don't you go and redeem him, bring him back to the mansion as a servant? That way, we can give General Daniel an account," father said earnestly, looking like a kind elder. I sneered inwardly. He thought that keeping Oliver under his nose would earn the young and Viscount's residence a reputation for being kind-hearted and righteous, and at the same time, he could find a way to get rid of this troublemaker. He really didn't think he was courting death too soon. "Forget it. Oliver is both dirty and stubborn. He can't be a servant in our mansion." I waved my hand and refused father's proposal. His face immediately turned ugly. "Just do as I say. Aren't you afraid it'll sound bad if it gets out that the son of the young and Viscount hangs around brothels?" Father snorted coldly, and the disdain in his eyes was quickly hidden. "Haven't you been there often enough before?" I was left speechless. When I saw Oliver again, he respectfully led me into the side room and then excused himself. "Wait, what else do you command?" young Master James? He hung his head and refused to look at me even once. My father asked me to redeem you and bring you back to the mansion. He must be suspicious about Liang's death. Oliver snorted, and it made me feel annoyed. What's this? A tip-off. Since you told me not to kill Matthew, why be so hypocritical? Oliver, do you really have to talk like this? I knew he wouldn't speak nicely, but hearing these sharp words still made me lose my temper. Oh, then may I ask, young Master James, how should I speak? Oliver completely dropped his previous compliance and revealed his fierce and sinister side. After all, I'm dirty and tough, not fit to serve a noble young master like you. Hearing this, the bad temper I was about to unleash was forced back, and I touched my nose guiltily. You got the news pretty fast. Ah, right. Oliver must have placed someone in the Yongin Viscount's residence. The conversation between my father and me would surely reach his ears. I just wanted to make him give up the idea of redeeming you. Oliver, I don't believe you couldn't tell what I meant. I'm slow-witted. Couldn't tell. You fine. You're not dirty or tough. I was talking nonsense. So I'm not tough. How could he say such things with a straight face even when he's angry? I was about to argue back, but Oliver had already walked away without looking back. On the day of my father Matthew's birthday, I went to the study, but was stopped outside the door by several strange guards. They said that the Yongin Viscount was meeting an important guest and couldn't be disturbed. I grumbled in dissatisfaction. Who cares about some important guest? In my own house, no one dares to stop me. The commotion alerted those in the study. The door suddenly swung open, and in an instant, the guards dropped to their knees. When I saw the first person to step out, I seemed to freeze for a moment, then hastily dropped to my knees. Greetings to your majesty. My father rushed to plead for me, saying it was an unintentional mistake. But I didn't appreciate it. I looked straight at the emperor and poured out all the words I'd been holding in for so long. Your majesty, since I have the honor of seeing you today, I earnestly request a re-examination of the case of the Xie family's embezzlement. This matter was a taboo. As soon as I finished speaking, there was a deathly silence all around. Only the crown prince, who hadn't spoken, beside the emperor gave me an extra glance. Just as I was about to continue, my father kicked me in the shoulder and loudly ordered the servants to give me 30 lashes. The long whip, soaked in salt water, lashed mercilessly across my back. I gritted my teeth and endured, my forehead covered in sweat. 10, 11, the servant counted as the emperor sat on his chair, looking down on everything. The pain made me hunch over. I could barely keep my knees on the ground and almost collapsed, but was quickly propped up by a stick, forcing me to straighten my back. The piercing pain dug into my flesh. I bit my lip and stubbornly repeated, I earnestly request a re-examination of the case of the Xie family's embezzlement. The teacup suddenly shattered in front of me. I heard the emperor's cold snort, and the whipping became even more severe. In a daze of consciousness, I thought of Oliver. So this kind of pain is really unbearable. I wonder how he could get excited about something like this. By the time the 30 lashes were over, my back was covered in blood. Continue. The emperor casually said a word, and the long whip was about to fall again. Crack. The expected lash didn't come. I swayed and looked back, only to find that Oliver had barged in at some point. He completely shielded my body and took this lash for me. Oliver. My father feigned great anger, and a flash of smile passed across his lips. How dare you barge into the Viscount's mansion and disturb his majesty? Do you also think the Xie family is wronged? Your majesty, you are magnanimous and kind, preserving the bloodline of the Xie family. But Oliver is ungrateful and instead doubts your majesty's judgment. It's really disgraceful. Oliver interrupted my father and slowly raised his head. Who said I came here for the matter of the Xie family? His words stunned my father. Today, I'm here for young Master James. Oliver knelt side by side with me, one hand supporting my barely standing body, and said seriously, young Master James was my former master. Even if he sent me away, I still regard him as my only master. As a subordinate, I should take the punishment for my master. I earnestly request your majesty's approval. He bowed deeply. I frowned, trying to speak, but when I opened my mouth, only a hoarse breath came out. The emperor's expression was hard to read, and it was unclear what he was thinking. Just as the atmosphere froze, a light laugh suddenly came, Father often says that whether it's ministers or commoners, loyalty should come first. Since this Oliver is willing to ask for punishment on behalf of his former master, I think we should grant his wish. Keep whipping until Father calms down. The Crown Prince smiled and brought a new teacup for the Emperor. After getting his acquiescence, he motioned for the whipping to continue. The whip fell on Oliver one after another, even deeper and heavier, but he just pursed his lips and didn't make a sound. His skin was lacerated and blood filled the air. I don't know how long it took before the Emperor casually said he was tired and got up to leave. Only the two of us were left kneeling there. Oliver's lips were pale, and he glared at me with gritted teeth. Apply the medicine properly. I'll come back to see you later. Hiss. Get out. Get out. I lay on the bed and told the clumsy servant to leave. As soon as I was alone in the room, Oliver jumped in through the window. What was wrong with him? He was clearly more severely injured than me, yet he could climb through the window. I could barely even turn over. Oliver walked straight to the bedside, his face looking worse than ever. You did it on purpose. He enunciated each word, staring at me with certainty, his eyes almost ablaze. I shrank my head. The reckless act just now might have fooled the Emperor, but it couldn't deceive Oliver. Yes, I did it on purpose. I had long known that the person meeting my father in the study was the Emperor, and I deliberately provoked him. Even pleading for the Xie family was pre-planned. Pleading with the Emperor to review the case is useless. He will never reverse the verdict for the Xie family. Oliver's eyes were bloodshot. Of course I know. Because it was the Emperor who wanted General Daniel dead, and my father guessed his thoughts and went along with it. You knew and still did it. The Emperor could take your life at any time if he gets angry. If I don't take a risk, how could you have a chance to see him? Oliver suddenly grabbed my wrist, his gaze menacing. Just how much do you know? I know you want to reverse the case. You want revenge, and not just against the Yongin Viscount's residence, but also the current. Oliver's expression turned solemn, and I immediately lowered my voice. I also know that your people have been in contact with the Crown Prince in private, but your plan is still missing one crucial step. You have to meet the Crown Prince in person to ensure everything goes smoothly. But the Crown Prince has long been living in the Deep Palace, and his every move is being watched by so many people. You don't have many opportunities. Only today, before I could finish, Oliver laughed out of anger. So you're playing with your life. Let me break into the Yongin Viscount's residence under the pretext of loyal protection of the master and meet the Crown Prince right under the Emperor's nose? Have you ever thought about what if I didn't come? I could have found other ways to meet. You would come. I stared into Oliver's eyes, realizing that I actually had never thought about this question. It was as if, from the very beginning, I was certain that he would come. Besides, if you really didn't come, I wouldn't die either. I winked slyly, finally breaking free from Oliver's hand. After all, my father only has me as his son now. Even if I'm good for nothing, he will surely try every means to save me. At most, I'd just be beaten half dead. Young Master James really has calculated everyone. Oliver snorted coldly. I couldn't stand his sarcastic tone, so I grabbed his collar, pulled him closer, and leaned up to kiss him. He only hesitated for a moment, then kissed me back even more passionately. Oliver, if you feel sorry for me, just admit it directly. Stop being so roundabout. Master doesn't seem to feel sorry for himself. Hearing him call me Master, I knew he had backed down. Put it back on. My fingertips gently tapped the collar around his neck. I clearly remembered that he had taken this thing off after he left last time. Oliver gave a hum. Oliver, I know so much. Why don't you suspect me? Suspect that you'd expose my plan? Oliver's expression was one of trust. If you really would do that, I wouldn't be alive now. Since that's the case, then can you not kill my father? When this matter was mentioned again, Oliver's body visibly stiffened. I'll do everything in my power to help you clear the Xie family's name and deal with those involved in the case, but I hope you don't kill my father. Is this a deal? Oliver asked in a low voice. No, I gently took his hand. This is a request. Oliver was silent for a long time. For him, the hatred of his family's extermination was not something that could be easily let go of. He stared deeply at me, and finally closed his eyes and sighed. Okay. After that, things progressed extremely quickly. One day, an imperial decree came from the palace. There was new evidence in the case of the Xie family's embezzlement, and the case was to be retried immediately. This was unusual. According to the emperor's temper, there was no way he would reopen this old case. Those officials who had been involved in the case couldn't sit still and came to the mansion one after another to discuss with my father. My father slapped the table and immediately decided to go to the palace to see the emperor. Just before he went out, I called out to him, "Today is Mother's death anniversary. Father, please offer a stick of incense to her before you leave." Father flicked his sleeve, saying I couldn't tell what was important, and then hurried out. Emma watched him leave the mansion, then turned to glance at me, still wearing that fake smile. I ignored her, went to take a bath and change clothes by myself, and then entered the small ancestral hall to offer a stick of incense to Mother. An hour later, as the sky gradually darkened, Father returned to the mansion with a solemn expression. The emperor summoned them to see him, but not me, and none of them have come back, he murmured to himself, then suddenly seemed to realize something. He quickly told people to pack their valuables, rushed into the woodshed, and secretly set a fire. In just a quarter of an hour, the towering flames spread throughout the Yongin Viscount's residence. I was sitting on a stone by the stream in the back garden, watching him take a side path, trying to leave through the side gate, but a flying long sword blocked his way. "Where are you going, Yongin Viscount?" Oliver approached step by step from outside the door, his voice cold and arrogant. He was covered in blood, the sharpness that had been hidden for a long time now fully revealed, exuding a menacing aura that said anyone in his way would die. "So it's you." Father stepped back step by step, the firelight reddening his bloodless face. Oliver didn't want to say a single extra word. His eyes bloodshot, he swung his sword and stabbed. "Oliver!" I shouted loudly. The tip of the sword immediately stopped in front of the Yongin Viscount's neck. I quickly walked forward. "You promised me you wouldn't kill him." The smell of burning grew stronger. Oliver forcefully suppressed the scarlet murderous intent in his eyes, touched my father's face in a humiliating way, and then turned and left. My father came to his senses and let out a relieved sigh. "James, I never expected it was you who saved me. From now on, your father will surely treat you even better." I gave a non-committal smile. "It's no longer safe here. Come with me, I'll take you away." Dodging a few burned out and collapsed roof beams, I led him into the small ancestral hall. "Why did you bring me here?" My father frowned. He was eager to escape and didn't want to waste time. "I've said it. Today is Mother's death anniversary. You're about to leave the Yongin Viscount's residence. At least offer her one last stick of incense." "Okay." "Nonsense. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late." My father turned to leave, but he had only taken one step when a blood-stained long sword pierced through his chest. "You?" He slowly turned his head and looked at me in disbelief. I coldly pulled out the sword, and warm blood immediately splattered all over the memorial tablets on the shrine. His body then fell to the ground. "I only asked Oliver not to kill you. I didn't say I wouldn't. You were the one who killed Mother, weren't you?" When Emma revealed the secret that day, I didn't believe it, but I lay in the rocking chair in the yard and thought about it for an entire afternoon. All the past clues flooded into my mind, and I had to find a way to verify it, so I had to return to the Yongin Viscount's residence. I didn't idle around these days until I confirmed everything. I originally thought you just didn't love Mother. I never thought you could kill your wife for your own self-interest. What a pity. I hate you so much, yet I still have the same cruel blood as you running through my veins. I dropped the long sword, crouched down, and watched as his breathing gradually weakened. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the door, and Emma rushed in. The moment she saw this scene, she started laughing like a madwoman, clutching her stomach. Good, James? You lunatic, you really dared to kill your father. Ha ha ha. Good. Somebody come. James has killed his father. My William is dead. He can't inherit the title of Yongin Viscount. And you, from now on, you'll always bear the stigma of patricide. You don't even think about inheriting the title. She laughed maniacally, and I glanced indifferently at the person on the ground. Who cares about the world's criticism or the title of the Earl's mansion? The dying Matthew suddenly coughed, and I frowned, noticing that his blood was black. Poisoned. Who said young Master James killed his father? Voices came, and Oliver, accompanied by several servants, approached unhurriedly. Matthew's eyes suddenly widened, and he stared at Oliver unwillingly, as if cursing venomously before his death. You all saw it. Matthew, the Yongin Viscount, died from the poison I administered. It has nothing to do with young Master James. Oliver spoke, and those servants all nodded in agreement. Emma shrieked, "You're talking nonsense. The Yongin Viscount still has the sword wound inflicted by James. The Yongin Viscount was poisoned, and young Master James was trying to let blood to heal his father. How come I didn't realize until today that Oliver has the ability to distort the truth? You guys, you can't hide this. Once the Emperor sees the body, everything will. He won't be able to." Oliver raised his hand, and the attendants immediately seized Emma. The late Emperor suddenly fell seriously ill and passed away today. He has passed the throne to the Crown Prince. Emma was so stunned that she couldn't speak and was led away. I should have thought of it. Oliver is the kind of guy who stops at nothing to get what he wants. There's no way he'd give up on avenging his blood relatives so easily. When did you poison him? When you stopped me from killing him just now and I touched his face. Oliver, you're going back on your word. I was so angry that I wanted to punch him, but he leaned his face in first, rubbing it against my blood-stained hand in a fawning way. Master, you can beat or punish me as you like. I just want to ask one thing. Why didn't you tell me? If I told you, would you have let me kill him with my own hands? Oliver fell silent, and I let out a helpless sigh. You wouldn't, because you don't want me to bear the infamy of patricide, even though I don't care at all. Master, he murmured, pressing close to me, his gaze gradually becoming more blatant. We're really cut from the same cloth. Get out. I slapped him, and he rubbed against me even more excitedly. My brows twitched violently. I kicked him away, then scooped up the numerous memorial tablets in the ancestral hall and rushed out in a hurry. As for that corpse, burning to death in the ancestral hall of the Yongin Viscount's residence would be an end to all his troubles. Tell me, what deal did you make with the Crown Prince? No, the Emperor. Why did an imperial decree come down this morning, making me inherit the Yongin Viscount's title? Earlier, in a brothel, I got some information that the late Emperor was thinking of deposing the Crown Prince, so I managed to get in touch with the Crown Prince. I promised to help him ascend the throne earlier, and in return, he would redress the grievances of the Xie family for me, hand over everyone in the Yongin Viscount's residence to me for disposal, and let you inherit the title. That's all. That's all. Oliver looked puzzled. Master, is there something wrong? I just feel that the Emperor looks at you in a rather unusual way. For some reason, this sentence seemed to strike a chord with Oliver. The desire in his eyes flared up completely, and with a heave, he pinned me beneath him. Could it be that Master is jealous? Jealous my ass. Master, I'm really happy. Before I could finish my curse, his straightforward words stopped me. As for the Emperor looking at me unusually, probably because yesterday, I asked him for an imperial order, saying that from now on, I would only be allowed to be your dog. What? With this shocking statement, not only the Emperor, but even I looked at Oliver in a strange way. Is there anything wrong? No, is there anything right? Now that you've become the Yongin Viscount and I've regained my status as General Xie's son, the Emperor might try to win over various forces in the court by arranging marriages. What if he carelessly bestows some young lady on you? How would we deal with that? Rather than waiting for that day, it's better to ask the Emperor for an order earlier. Only I can be your dog, and only you are my master. The system's voice suddenly exploded in my ear. Congratulations, host. Maximum favorability achieved. The mission is a success. Extra chapter. Since I was a child, I had heard that James, the eldest son of the Yongin Viscount, was arrogant and overbearing. At that time, people thought he would inherit the Yongin Viscount's title, so they rarely called him Young Master James. Instead, they flatteringly addressed him as Young Lord. Young Lord, Young Lord, these three words just roll off the tongue with a sense of pampering. But the first time I saw him, he was pitifully pushed into the stream. I was being playful, lying on the wall of the Yongin Viscount's residence. I was just shocked. How could such a life-threatening thing happen in broad daylight, right in the Viscount's mansion? He was just a small figure, flailing his arms and legs randomly. Soon, he started sinking underwater. Seeing that it was really going to be a fatal situation, I didn't think much. I jumped off the wall, plunged into the water, and dragged him towards the shore. His eyes were shut and he didn't move. I quickly tore open his collar to let him breathe. Hey, 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 I kept calling him, but he didn't wake up. Fortunately, he spat out 2 mouthfuls of water, and some color returned to his pale cheeks. So delicate, I thought to myself. Before I could wipe the water off his lips, I heard footsteps in the distance. I immediately climbed back onto the wall. The anxious-looking woman's eyes reddened as soon as she saw the child lying on the shore. Then she forced herself to calm down, ordering someone to fetch a doctor and someone else to prepare warm water and clothes. Listening to those people running and shouting, I realized that the child who had fallen into the water was the young Lord James. Unexpectedly, a month later, I accidentally saw him again. This time, the child who seemed so weak and delicate in my eyes resolutely kicked William, who had pushed him into the water earlier, into the burning fire. He never lets go of a grudge. Since I was a child, I've read nothing but military strategies and books by sages teaching tolerance and benevolence. This was the first time I'd met someone so vengeful, and I was immediately intrigued, so I couldn't help but look at him a few more times. James was young and fair-skinned, but as long as he stood there, he had an imposing presence. His eyes were beautiful and proud. When he saw William struggling out of the fire, he raised his hand and slapped him, saying haughtily that he wouldn't attack unless attacked. I hid behind a tree, staring at James's reddened hand. My heart suddenly trembled. I couldn't quite describe the feeling, but my chest felt as stuffy and damp as if I'd been drowning. Unfortunately, later I followed my father to gain experience in the military, and I returned to the capital less and less often. Only occasionally did I hear street gossip about what trouble the young lord of Yong and Viscount's residence had caused, and those red hands of his would always come to mind. But I didn't expect that when I saw him again in the streets and alleys. He was completely different from the arrogant child in my memory. He was still arrogant and overbearing, but something was missing. After making some inquiries, I learned that after James's mother passed away, he moved out of Yong and Viscount's residence alone. People's address for him also changed from young lord to Master James. I knew what was different about him. He was still arrogant and overbearing, but he had lost his spirit. He used to look like he'd been pampered, that noble and precious air about him nurtured by his mother's love. But now it's different. No matter how arrogant he seems, it's just a facade, a skin he's putting up, clinging to the past. I felt sorry. The once high-spirited and lively young master had now become ordinary. And that tiny bit of pity vanished completely after I learned that the Yong and Viscount had killed the entire Xia family. I hated those so-called moral principles, hated the whole hierarchy of rulers and subjects. I wanted to avenge my enemies, make them pay for their crimes with blood. Hatred had sustained me for a long way, but all the scheming had left me exhausted. I wasn't afraid of those so-called humiliations. I was just afraid that, after putting everything on the line, it would all be in vain, and I'd let down the entire Xia family. When I was struggling, James broke through the difficult situation with a single sword strike. His fierce determination to kill me made me see the look of his childhood again. Indeed, this was the most vivid and handsome side of him. The young him had sown the seeds of an eye for an eye in me, and now he showed me the way. Look, what's there to worry about? If worst comes to worst, just kill them and be done with it. I felt an inexplicable excitement and restlessness. The fog in my heart dissipated, and the path ahead became wide open. But the only thing that puzzled me was, I hadn't met him face to face. Why did he look at me with such hatred, as if I had tortured him? Years later, when I thought back to that day, I asked James about it. He glared at me, his slender white toes stepping on my shoulder, and said crossly, "Stop asking." Well, fine. If he doesn't want me to ask, I won't. Anyway, we had all the time in the world for the rest of our lives.